Hello and welcome to Colred Plays Raid Shadow Legends. I am Colred. I hope your holidays are going well. In today's video, we are going to go into the cursed city of Sintranos and take on the big boss, Amius, the Lunar Archon. So if your plan is to get to Amius before the end of this current rotation, you're going to want to watch this video. I hope you're ready for it. Let's get started. Just a quick note before we go any further, I am still in the midst of my subscriber push. I'm hoping for 4,000 subscribers by the end of 2023, and we only have a few days left. So if you're willing to help me out, please click the like button for this video. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and consider joining our Discord community. Thanks so much for the support. Now let's get back to the video. Okay, so here we are in Sintranos. You can see I have unlocked Amius, the Lunar Archon, but only in the normal difficulty. So I haven't been able to unlock him in hard mode yet, but I'm interested in the fight. From what I understand, the mechanics are basically the same between the two difficulty levels. So let's go ahead and check out the breakdown of the fight. Okay, so Amius's A1 is an AoE that attacks all enemies. It increases the damage inflicted by this skill by 10% for each buff on Amius. Also heals Amius by 100% of the damage dealt, includes damage dealt to shield buffs. Okay, so right away, we're going to know a couple of things. One, we probably want a buff removal champion, or at least we don't want the boss to get too many buffs. And then the second thing is we're going to probably want a healing reduction champion. Lunar Storm is the A2, another AoE. Before attacking, increases the duration of all buffs and decreases the duration of all debuffs on Amius by 1 turn. Heals Amius by 20% of his max HP. The heal increases by 5% for each buff that has its duration increased. So again, we don't want buffs on Amius, and we still need that healing reduction debuff. This also fills Amius's turn meter by 10% for each debuff that has its duration decreased. So that feels like we don't want too many debuffs either, which is kind of interesting. I don't know if we're going to be able to avoid debuffs entirely, but Amius is going to get a lot of turn meter off of debuffs that we have when Lunar Storm is available. So one thing we can do is maybe plan our debuffs for the right moment, and that will prevent Lunar Storm from giving Amius too much turn meter. The third skill is Rampant Chaos, which removes any block buffs and turns them into block debuffs. In fact, what this skill does is it removes pretty much the majority of debuffs and turns them into buffs. Now, this won't remove poisons, won't remove HP burns, but it basically removes everything else and turns them into the flip side, or the mirror buff of that debuff. So a weaken becomes a strengthen, a heal reduction becomes a continuous heal, so on and so forth. This then places a stun debuff on all enemies, except mythical champions, for 1 turn. And then it fills Amius's turn meter by 10% for each debuff converted into a buff by this skill. So again, what we can see is too many debuffs could be problematic. Now there are several passives. Amius is a mythical champion and has 2 forms, so this is for the first form. The first passive is Robed in Moonlight. Whenever an enemy is healed, Amius also heals by 25% of the value of the original heal. So again, healing debuffs, right? Healing reduction debuffs. Heals Amius by 100% of the damage inflicted against shield buffs. And if a shield buff is removed by damage, okay, so just a bunch of heals, basically. Whenever an enemy decreases a skill's cooldown with an artifact, accessory, mastery, or skill, also decreases the cooldown of Amius's Archon Ascendance. Okay, so we don't want to bring in cooldown reduction skills, and it would be better not to have the cooldown reduction masteries as well. And of course, you want to avoid reflex set, right, which would reduce the cooldown based on the armor set's passive. So we want to avoid reducing cooldowns if at all possible. The next passive is Archon's Ascendance. At the start of Amius's turn, places an eclipse buff on him for 3 turns. This buff cannot be blocked, removed, transferred, spread, or have its duration increased or decreased. Okay. This skill will be on a 4-turn cooldown at the start of the battle, and whenever Amius transforms into his base form. Okay, so this is going to be on a 4-turn cooldown at the start, and then it looks like it's on a 4-turn cooldown every time he transforms. Okay, this revives Amius with 30% HP and 50% turn meter when killed under an Eclipse buff. This effect only activates if Amius is killed in his alternate form. Okay, so in the alternate form with an Eclipse buff, he's basically immortal. He'll come back. Now we have Almighty Immunity, which we're used to. Almighty Strength. Again, this is typical. This is actually a stronger version of Almighty Strength. Damage from skills that scale based on enemy max HP cannot exceed 5% of the boss's max HP when attacking the boss. For most bosses, this is 10%, but for this boss, it has been reduced down to 5%. Awakened Weakness decreases the damage inflicted by the boss for each awakening level on the target champion, and it increases the damage received by the boss for each awakening level on the attacking champion. So if you have champions that are awakened, that's better. Basically, you'll take less damage and do more damage. Now, the boss does have an alternate form, and we have to consider this form as well. So Abyssal Construct attacks one enemy 2 times, and it ignores 100% of the target's defense. The damage increases by 20% for each debuff on the enemy. So you want to remove debuffs if possible. You don't want to have any debuffs. And you're hoping to stay alive through this, but that means defensive champions aren't going to be as valuable as champions with high HP pools. Now, this decreases Amius's ignored defense effect for each awakening level. Again, you'll take less damage if you have awakening levels. If this attack kills an enemy, it instantly activates the Maniacal Bedlam skill, which is down here. So we'll have to see. We would prefer Abyssal Construct not to kill our champions, but if it does, then you're going to get Maniacal Bedlam. So we're going to skip down here. This removes any block debuffs buffs from enemy and replaces them with a block buffs debuff lasting for 2 turns. So if you have a block debuffs buff up, you're trying not to get debuffed, it's going to remove that and put a block buffs debuff up instead. That's not easy to say. Also removes any buffs positively. So this is basically the reverse of the skill in the standard form, in the normal form. So again, strips all buffs and replaces them with the mirrored debuffs. Then it will place a sleep debuff on all enemies except mythical champions for 1 turn, and this debuff cannot be resisted or blocked. And then again, fills Amius's turn meter by 10% for each buff converted into a debuff by this skill. So we also want to watch out for buffs at least when Maniacal Bedlam is up, or if we think Abyssal Construct is going to kill one of our champions. So that's, potentially a problem. We're going to want tanky champions with large HP pools, and we are going to want significant healing here. Now we skipped over Blood Moon Vortex, so let's look at this. This is another AoE. Before attacking, increases the duration of all debuffs and decreases the duration of all buffs on all enemies by 1 turn. Increases damage inflicted by 5% of the target's max HP for each enemy buff that has its duration decreased. So in the alternate form, you want to watch out for buffs, basically. So it feels like in the normal form, you want to watch out for debuffs, and in the alternate form, you want to watch out for buffs on your team. Okay, now we still have some passives here. And it looks like this passive is slightly different, reduces the amount of healing that enemies receive by 50% when Amius is under an Eclipse buff. So we want a lot of healing. We're going to want revives, but we are going to get reduced healing when the Eclipse buff is up. Now, Amius will ignore shield, block damage, and unkillable buffs while the Eclipse buff is up. But we could potentially get value out of, say, a strengthen or an increased defense, maybe an ally protect. So those might be buffs that would be worth it. Remember, we don't want to get our buffs removed here from Maniacal Bedlam. So it looks like strengthen and increased defense probably would be a problem. But it doesn't look like ally protection would be a problem. So we might actually want ally protection. That may mean we also want Guardian sets. Okay, now, again, the passives here, Almighty Immunity, Almighty Strength, and Awakened Weakness. Now, in this form, it looks like damage from skills that scale based on enemy max HP cannot exceed 10% of the boss's max HP. So, in the alternate form, the damage that we can do is the normal 10%. So, we actually probably want to use max HP hits during the alternate form. Now, I don't notice any immunity to slow here. It may be that just slows get turned into increased speeds, but I also don't see anything about turn meter other than filling the turn meter. But I would be surprised if this boss can have turn meter decreased. Okay, starting in this section, how it works, there is actually a very long and in-depth description of the fight. So I would suggest that if you're going in there for the first time, you're going to want to read this. You're probably going to want to read this next rotation again. Just refamiliarize yourself with this. So there is a lot of detail here. I don't want to go over it all now. You can come in here and read it yourself. But if my little description there wasn't enough to get you a clear understanding of what's going on, this description is actually pretty solid, so I would recommend that you read it. Okay, so now we have to start to put together a team to actually take on Amius. Again, just a reminder, I am in normal difficulty. I have no idea how hard this is going to be, but this is my level 100 free-to-play account. And it feels like the most important debuff that we need to bring is a decrease healing or a healing reduction. Now, there are two champions that I have that I think you may have that are very, very good for this. And the first one is Venom Mage. Venom Mage has a great healing reduction, but I think even better than Venom Mage may be Cold Heart. Cold Heart has a healing reduction on her A1, and because it's on her A1, you can have it just fired off all the time. Now, Venom Mage's healing reduction, I believe, is up for 3 turns on a 3-turn cooldown, so you could also have 100% uptime on that. But there are some cleanse mechanics and reducing debuff mechanics, so I think an A1 might be even more valuable. If you have both of these champions and you can bring both, I would probably do so. Now, I'm not going to be bringing my Venom Mage today because the stat requirements here in terms of accuracy are actually pretty high. So let's go ahead and take a look at that first. Okay, so here I am on hellhades.com and we're using the Raid Shadow Legends stages tool. And you can see I have chosen the Cursed City of Sintranos, Amius the Lunar Archon, difficulty of normal, and stage 1. And if you go down here, you can get the stats. Now, where it says resistance, this is the boss's resistance. So the white number here, that is the boss's resistance. The orange number next to it is the accuracy you need to overcome it. So we need 375 accuracy. In addition, if you're trying to resist any of the Lunar Archon's abilities, you're going to need 555 resistance, which is unlikely to be a resistance you carry on many champions. But if you have a cleanser with this resistance, I would highly recommend you consider bringing that cleanser as well. Okay, so the reason I'm not going to bring my Venom Mage, because my Venom Mage doesn't have the necessary accuracy, isn't even really close. I think she's carrying around 250 accuracy, so I would need a lot more. However, there's another thing you can do to make sure that you can bring the accuracy, which is you could, actually with Venom Mage, you could even put Venom Mage in the lead if you that 45 accuracy is going to get you to the 355 threshold. In this case, it's not enough. But there are other champions that have increased accuracy. In this case, I'm going to bring Mithrala. I'm going to bring Mithrala for several reasons. One, she has very high resistance for me, so she's going to be likely able to resist most of the effects of Amius. In addition, she's a cleanser. She also has some poisons on her A1. I think she's going to be a good overall champion. If you have Mithrala, you know how good she is. You probably use it in a lot of places. So I'm going to use her to make sure that all of my champions have enough accuracy today. Now, in addition, I do want to bring a decrease attack debuff, because even though I want to stay away from bringing too many debuffs, I can't really avoid all of them. And I think the decrease attack is going to help me survive. I also want to go with some healing and revivers. So I'm going to bring in Mighty Uko. Remember that we do have the restrictions here for these particular 5 factions. So if I go to the filter, I can show you what the factions are. So here are the factions: Barbarians, Lizardmen, Skinwalkers, Dark Elves, and Sylvan Watchers. Now, if you're looking for a healing reduction champion, there are some in the Dark Elves. There are several in the Dark Elves faction. So chances are you want to look there first. But if you have a Cold Heart or even 2 Cold Hearts, that's probably the cheapest, best, most effective option. So honestly, I would just go with her. Now we need to bring in some heals, some revives, a cleanse, maybe a block debuffs. So I'm actually going to bring in Pythion here, who I think is perfect for this fight. And then we could double up here with Sill of the Drakes. That wouldn't be bad. She's got a 2-star awakening, which isn't awful. That would mean everybody has at least 1 star. Or you could go with another damage dealer, maybe a Nishak, or I do have a 4-star awakened Ragash here, who could be pretty solid. But I actually think we might need more healing and more reviving. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring in Elva Autumnborn. Now I am going to leave Mithrala in the lead here to make sure that everybody has enough accuracy. Let me actually double check that. Let me see if that's an issue. So here's my Mithrala. She has over 600 accuracy, so she shouldn't be a problem. Mighty Uko does need to land several abilities. Mighty Uko is also the only buff strip champion that I have. Mighty Uko can remove buffs, so that's important. And is at 382, so that's going to be enough accuracy. Elva doesn't land any debuffs. Pythion doesn't land any debuffs. And we know that this one, my number 2 Coldheart, has the accuracy I need at 363. Just a little bit shy, actually. I think we need 370. Do we need 375 or 355? We need 375. So I do have the masteries. She'll get a little bit of... She'll get her accuracy there. I do have the masteries from the accuracy, so she'll get her accuracy there. So what I could do is, instead of running Mithrala as my lead, I could run Pythion for resistance if I wanted to help people with resistance, but I actually don't think I'm going to have enough resistance on anybody but Mithrala, who's got it anyway. So I think I'm going to do this instead. So we're just going to use Mighty Uko's increase speed aura to get more rotations, and hopefully that'll help. More healing, more heal reductions, more cleanses. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the fight and see what it's all about. Okay, so here I have to remember that in this form, we don't want to use too many debuffs, and in the alternate form, we don't want to use too many buffs. But we do want to get that healing reduction out there if possible, and the decrease attack, I think. And we can use buffs in this form, so we're going to get that block debuffs buff out there, and also the increased speed. There's the healing reduction debuff. I'm going to try to remove this increase attack because that feels dangerous. We are going to end up with a ton of debuffs, but I think poisons are okay. I think poisons and HP burns are okay. So that wasn't too bad. Cold Heart got hit pretty hard. Get that healing reduction back out there. Now it looks like we got one more turn here on Archon's Ascendance. We'll have to see what happens when that lands. I'm assuming, yep, that's the transformation. Oh, that's pretty cool. That was pretty cool. Uh-oh. Okay, so that was rough. But so that was pretty cool. You could see the whole night turned red. Like the moon turned red. The whole scene changed color. Okay, so I did lose my Cold Heart, but the decreased healing debuff is still up. So let's get Cold Heart back up. Get a cleanse out there. I got to worry about buffs now. I don't want to put out too many buffs. I think debuffs are fine, though. I can't avoid some buffs because I need to get Cold Heart healed up. But okay, so this is problematic. Okay, that swapped and swapped back. That was very quick. And now there is some continuous healing up. Let's go ahead and cleanse. We can get another revive off. We've got several revivers. See if we can get a decreased healing. And then Cold Heart goes down again. Let's strip that buff. All right, I think we got to worry about buffs, right? We don't want too many buffs up. We might just be in this weird cycle where Cold Heart dies a lot and then she gets brought back because I've got 3 revivers. All right, we can finally use her Heartseeker. Do some damage there. Looks like we survived that just fine. I think we've got one more turn here before the boss flips back, so we want to avoid too many buffs. Decrease attack is good. Decrease healing. We don't have decrease healing up. In fact, we filled up the debuff bar without a healing reduction. All right, let's cleanse. We are still in the alternate form. We've been in the alternate form the whole time, so I'm starting to worry that we might not be able to get out of alternate form. Healing reduction. We need everybody cleansed. Gonna keep trying here. And there goes Cold Heart again. This is a tough fight. Okay, so we transformed and transformed back. I didn't see if the boss actually got some healing off that turn. Get rid of that increase attack. Now she has a veil, so maybe she won't be targeted. Okay. Decrease healing. I think we need speed. I know we're not supposed to have, but I think we're not supposed to have buffs up, but it's hard to say. Big hit, big nuke. Not that it's that big. Okay, that wasn't awful. I don't know why. Get the healing reduction reapplied. We want it up for as many turns as possible. All right, Elva got targeted there. That was better than Coldheart getting knocked down again. More poisons are good, I think. So one more turn on the buff. Yeah, so we keep converting twice. I don't know what that mechanic is about. We'll have to figure that out. Let's get the healing reduction there. It feels like we're in a good spot right now. Decrease attack is good. Poisons are good. If I don't have that healing reduction on at least a 2-turn duration there, I am going to refresh it. This is where I think having 2 Cold Hearts could really help, because then you could alternate Cold Hearts applying the debuffs and the other Cold Heart could be using the Heartseeker. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to use Heartseeker too often because I haven't had the debuff up, the healing reduction up for long enough. Because when she gets killed, it drops and then that's a problem. I don't want him healing. That looks good. Now we can use it. That's a nice hit. All right, so now the Eclipse buff is up. That was a lot of turn meter fill, but this time wasn't so bad because we didn't have all those buffs up, I think. Right? It didn't go around and around and around because we only had a few buffs up. Now, one of the things that I've done here is I put my Pythion in protection. So some of those buffs are protected as well, and I don't think those can be removed. I don't know if they count, but they can't be removed. Now, chances are, if I bring Coldheart back, she's just going to die, so let's go ahead and skip that. See what happens here. Okay. That wasn't too bad. That's weird. That's happened twice now where the boss has gone as I've tried to use this skill. And the turn meter hasn't filled, so the boss just goes anyway. Let's go ahead and get a little bit of healing going. We need that healing reduction from Coldheart. Oh, we missed. That's not good. Decrease attack is good. That should help. she's down again. If I bring her up, she's just going to be killed off. All right. Let's cleanse everybody. Get rid of that increase attack. Oh, there we go. I thought he was going to get revived, but he didn't have his Eclipse buff up, so that was enough. And in fact, that's pretty cool. That's a lot of gear there. Looks like only one 6-star piece, but we've got a bunch of accessories as well. So let me check these out. Supersonic. I'd like some speed on Supersonic, but no such luck here. Merciless. That's a decent shield. I like that on Supersonic. Dwarves Amulet, pretty good. High Elves Banner. What set is that? Supersonic. Okay. And Knights Revenant. So actually not great pieces. We got one good piece, I think, there and out of the lot. But so a little bit of a surprise turn. 174 turns, 8 minutes and 45 seconds. Now these are some very good champions. They're built pretty well, about as well as I can build them. And this was not an easy fight. Obviously, it was the first time I actually came into this fight, and the team worked, which was great. You may be able to go fairly tanky. Venomage obviously is a tanky champion as well, and can actually mitigate the damage for your team with that 15% damage reduction from the heal reduction debuff when it's on the boss. So that might even be more effective here. But I do think potentially having 2 damage dealers might be better. I just went very safe, and so it took a while. But you could probably do this a bit faster with either a second Cold Heart or maybe a Cold Heart and a Venomage. That could be more effective here. If you don't have Mithrala, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. I just think you need a cleanser there, or maybe somebody who, depending on your accuracy, somebody who has an accuracy lead, or again, you could put the second damage dealer in her spot. I do think you're going to want to have at least 2 cleansers. In this case, there's 3 cleansers, but 2 of these cleansers have block debuffs, buffs. And then you also want a decrease attack probably somewhere, preferably on an A1, preferably at 100%. Yeah, but that felt pretty good. So let's take one last look at the Archon here in the Cursed City. All right, it is cleared out. Go to my quest, check out what we did there. Defeat the Lunar Archon and get ourselves some cursed candles. All right, not too bad. We're going for that cursed chest. We're trying to get all the way there. All right, so that is it. I hope you found this informative or interesting. If you know something about this fight that you think I should share with the community, definitely put that in the comments below. Also, let me know your team comp. If you've successfully defeated this boss, let me know what champions you use, and if you found out any secret tweaks or tricks that we can use to make the fight a little bit easier. All right, that is it for this one. I have been Colred. Thanks so much for hanging out, and I will see you in another video soon.